I'd like to call to order the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education open agenda meeting for May 12th, 2020, held online and live streamed. Mrs. Saradecki, will you please call the roll?
Yes, could everybody please unmute yourself for roll call? Mrs. Bauer?
Here.
Mrs. Boroff?
Here.
Mrs. Brody?
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Here.
Mrs. Suriani?
Here.
Mrs. Williams?
Here.
Mrs. Winkler?
Here.
Mr. Murray?
Here.
Dr. Kulikowski?
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you, Mrs. Saradecki. Will you please join me in a salute to the flag? I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which
for which it stands, one
nation
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, so in executive session, which we just held prior to this meeting, we discussed the personnel, legal status, and the board self-evaluation. At this time, we have additions to the agenda, such as 3 LET, email regarding high school field lighting approval, 1 BUS, the Diamond Construction paving proposal, funding withdrawn to change to maintenance reserve, and 1 POL, the field lighting policy. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings of public bodies at which business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted at the Board of Education offices located at 512 Cedar Street, Scotch Plains, New Jersey. Such notice was provided in written notice and forwarded to the Star Ledger, the Times, the Township Clerk of Scotch Plains, and the Borough Clerk of Fanwood in the revised annual notice of regularly scheduled meetings adopted on August 29th, 2019. Next, we have instructional updates. And tonight, we're going to be recognizing Terrell students who qualified for nationals for National History Day with their raps of mission, Rapping Away Injustice. So at our last meeting, Mrs. Bauer acknowledged the enthusiastic Terrell Middle School students that represented Scotch Plains Fanwood for National History Day. This evening, we'd like to formally recognize the 4 finalists that advanced to the state finals for their performance, Rapping Away Injustice, showcasing how female U.S. Supreme Court justices broke social barriers. Unfortunately, we were not able to coordinate the students for a live performance virtually, but we will see their rap tonight because we're able to play a few minutes from the original performance that took place at the live competition at Rutgers Camden. Now, the video was shot using a cell phone, so the quality is not the best, but if you listen closely, the content is incredible. It will be my honor to read a resolution on behalf of the board after the video. So here are the Terrell Middle School students, Sadie Bober, Rachel Lipsky, Shana Mahajan, and Sharia Nara in performing Rapping Away Injustice. Let's take a look.
Our thing is called Rapping Away Injustice, and it's about the 4 female Supreme Court members who broke barriers to get to where they are today. We will each represent one of the 4. And when we take our robes off, we'll be representing the barriers that they had to face in the form of people who are trying to discourage them. Hey, I'm Sandra Day O'Connor, but you can call me Your Honor. Appointed by Reagan, retired in '06, first woman in the court, did it with own trick. Dealt with breast cancer, staying strong was the answer. No discrimination feels when you're wearing heels. So up with this, cause my prefix was miss. Wanna know how it can be? Ask RBG. The name's Ruth. I only speak the truth. If you disagree with me, I'll throw you for a loop. I am Jewish, and to temple I went. Don't hate on people who are different, or I will dissent. My mom died before my high school graduation. She told me to focus on my education. People call me the notorious RBG because my actions show courage and integrity. The number of female justices keep increasing. We hope the discrimination is decreasing. It's about time you trust us. Sonia Sotomayor, the next female justice.
Sonia, Sonia. My name's Sonia Sotomayor. Some laws can't be ignored. Let me tell you my story, it won't be a bore. I grew up under challenging circumstances. I didn't let that stop me from making my advances. I grew up in the Bronx housing projects, and my dad died when I was a child. My mom worked 2 jobs to keep us all alive. Chronic illness and material poverty were some challenges I faced. Despite that, schoolwork was something I aced. When I was 7, diabetes was what I got. Despite the tough times, knowledge was what I sought. Thankfully, I'm not the last female on the court. Let's welcome Elena Kagan, the best of all sorts.
Yo, my name's Elena Kagan. I won't prove you wrong if you think I'm mistaken. I've been a Supreme Court Justice since 2010. Let's all get along and work together, my friends. I graduated from Harvard in 1986. I defied the status quo, wasn't pulled by people's tricks. I worked for a lawyer. Yeah, my job was pretty dope. People said I couldn't do it, but I still held on to hope. When I got appointed as a Supreme Court Justice, people complained that I had no judge experience. Sure, that was true, but what was really their issue was that I was female. They kept crying, so I gave them a tissue.
Wow. That was impressive, and I can see why they won.
Can I just chime in for 1 minute?
Of course, Nancy, go right ahead.
I just wanted to say that behind the raps that they were doing there, and that was the first level of the competition, is if you could see the bibliographies and the research that these students do in books and diaries and newspapers and online, they are really like college level research. So there's a lot behind it, and it was a clever way. They only have 10 minutes to try and highlight the important pieces of their research. So and this is the first group from Scotch Plains Fanwood to ever make it to the national competition. So my hat's off to them, and congratulations.
And especially because they're middle school students to boot. You know, usually the students start doing this in middle school, so they know by the time they get to high school how to enter into National History Day competitions, whether they're doing a presentation, a website, a documentary, what have you. So here they are at that early stage and still being able to qualify, and not only qualify at regional and state, but to make it to national. So impressive. And it's such honor they're bringing to the school and the district. Thank
So
you.
we'll have our fingers crossed. They compete
Yes.
in June. So maybe
Yes.
at our last meeting, we'll see. But it's very hard because there are thousands of kids from across the country. So just to make it is an honor.
And just to give a shout out to Philip Yap and Ralph Garaci for supporting the students and developing that work. I think everyone put their hearts and their minds into getting that done so well.
Okay, and for the other instructional update, that'll be on May 28th, where we'll be recognizing the PTA presidents and PTA council president for this service to our schools and to our district. Now, was there a resolution printed separately for this, or is that forthcoming? Because I didn't see it in the agenda.
I don't know that this was a resolution. It was
Okay.
just a recognition.
Okay, thank you. Because I was like, I didn't see it, just clarifying. So then at this time, we're going to have an open public session. And if you'd like to make a public comment, please call 908-913-0709. In accordance with the Scotch Plains Fanwood Public Schools Bylaws 0164 and 0165, the meeting will be open for 15 minutes for public comments. This is a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers addressing the superintendent items, business functions, and other board business will be heard first. If time remains, speakers may address other matters. So if you would like to make a public comment, please call 908-913-0709. And please note, board members cannot respond regarding concerns of individual students or staff members. Such matters need to be addressed with the superintendent's office.
Dr. Kulikowski, this is Robin. We do have a caller on the line. It's Mr. Adam Sackett.
Adam Sackett. All right, let me just make note.
Mr. Sackett, you are on speaker. If you could just
Hey, thank you, Robin.
loudly.
Sure. So this is the time for public comment?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to understand, I'm not a budget expert by any means, but I had read a recent article about expenditures for lights at a football field, and want to understand, number one, is it the proper time to do this? Number two, what is being done to kind of address COVID-19, realizing there will be, costs for, I would expect testing, extra cleaning, nurses, mental health, etc. So I just would like to kind of understand what is going to be done with that.
Well, the field lighting, everything was already pre-planned before the COVID broke out. So it's not like we did anything new since that had happened. And the funds that are being used for that are already earmarked for that and cannot be taken away to be appropriated to any other section of our budget. As far as cleaning the schools, that has been done, it is being done, and we are in the process of planning to be ready for whenever schools open in the future. And Mrs. Saradaki or Dr. Mass, if you have anything else to add to what I've said, please.
Yeah, I have a little bit. Some of those concerns that Mr. Sackett raises are certainly our concerns too. And in our facilities report, I think you'll hear how we're really thinking about having a strategic plan for the pandemic. What additional supplies do we need? What additional mental health services do we need? What additional medical support do we need? And even in the area of just emergency management. Of course, we're one district of many, and we're collaborating with districts across Union County and the state to have an approach there. As far as the field lights, we certainly were aware that not initially, it's been a long-standing request of many people in the community to move in that direction. When the fiscal crisis hit, we did take a comma, but to pause and think about it, the issue, as Dr. Kulikowski mentioned, those monies are in capital reserves, and the money in capital reserves have been saved over time to do improvements to the schools and the facilities. So we couldn't transfer that money in an emergency to address other needs. And recognizing that the lights, in fact, will be a source to bring the community together, will provide additional space for our athletes, will bring some opportunities that will hopefully be joyful for the community when we do come out the other side of this. We continued, because to stop the project, we would lose investments of what we already did in engineering, planning, and things like that. We also know historically, when we had money in reserves, when Chris Christie had a budget crisis, he took the money out of district reserves, and the district would then lose the money that they were saving. When he would take the money, he would counterbalance it with the money he wouldn't give you in state aid. So we thought it was fiscally responsible to continue, though we knew it would be a communication challenge, Mr. Sackett, because it seems like we're being oblivious to the fact that we are entering a serious financial situation. But every board member thought about it very carefully, as did I and as did RBA. And we did decide together along with both mayors, that it was the right thing to do to continue.
Thank you, Dr. Mast.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Sackett, what town do you reside in?
Scotch Plains.
Thank you.
You got it. Thank you.
Appreciate your call tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your explanation, Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Sackett.
Thank you, Robin. Are there any other calls at this time?
At this time, there are no other calls, Dr. Kolakowski.
Okay, then we'll end this section of the public comment, and we'll move along and come back to it again later.
I don't know that Dr. Mast is, I saw her fall off. There she is. She got back on.
Okay, good. So moving on to committee reports. Who has a committee report? Or should I say who doesn't have a committee report?
I have curriculum.
Okay.
Am I going with curriculum?
Yeah, go right ahead. Sure.
Okay. The curriculum committee had 3 agenda items, and they were related to changes that had to be made in selection processes due to at-home learning and the COVID pandemic. The first is revision to the Quest identification process that was presented by Erin Mullman, the elementary supervisor. Quest is the district's, for those who don't know, Quest is our district's gifted and talented program for students in grades 4 through 8, and it involves about 40 students per grade level. In 3rd grade, during the 3rd grade year, students are selected for this program, and the criteria involves NJSLA assessments, which are not available this year because students are not taking the standardized test. So Erin presented that the district will still use multiple measures to determine eligibility, and they will include standardized tests from past years, as well as classroom performance and parent questionnaire, which also are considerations every year. This year, the committee to determine eligibility is broadened. In the past, it was Erin and the Quest instructors, but now they're broadening the committee to include building principals as well as classroom teachers. A little bit more flexibility in the schedule due to at-home learning allows for increased feedback from these various types of administrators and teachers to the Quest selection process. So it's expanding feedback, and it's also allowing for professional development where teachers are now learning more about the gifted and talented class and the process for identifying these students. So that's one change that's happening. Another change due to at-home learning is revisions to grade 7th and 8th math honors class placement process. And Sarah Kelly, the math supervisor, again, this is a situation where due to NJSLA testing not being completed, they don't have these tests to be able to identify students to move into honors math. So the district is using other measures, again, teacher observation, and the teachers are being asked to use a performance rubric to guide their observations, school performance, grades for the first 3 quarters of this year, as well as other standardized measures. Usually at the end of a grade 6, students would normally take an algebra readiness test that, of course, now cannot be given, but now the teacher is going to be given, classroom teachers are going to be given feedback based on how they feel students' performances with pre-algebraic skills, as well as looking at other assessments they have from when students were in the classroom earlier this academic year. So similar to the Quest selection process, a secondary gain is that now teachers are going to be more involved in this process as opposed to just standardized testing. So they're going to be able to have some professional development around this selection process and understanding the criteria for the math honors selection. And Similarly for grade 8th English honors class, that was math, but for the English honors class, since also the third benchmark is not available due to at-home learning, just the first and second quarters benchmarks will be used for eligibility. And the third change that the curriculum committee spoke about was that Dr. Heisey discussed that there will be a waiver for final exams for this academic year. He has been doing a lot of meeting with teachers. With students in Google Meetups and talking about the students' concerns, anxieties, their experiences with at-home learning, and decided that since final exams are only 1/9 of students' overall grades in class, and that they have not been covering the content in the same way that they would in the classroom, that administering final exams would only increase the students' anxiety at this time. So final exams will be waived. Dr. Heisey also, I mentioned in the last curriculum committee meeting that Dr. Heisey is part of a Union County principals group. So this is in line with what other districts are doing as well in terms of waiving final exams. And also wanted to let everyone know that the middle schools are also following in suit and will not have final exams either. So the semester grades will, the quarter grades will make up the student's total grade. And the next curriculum committee meeting is on June 10th.
Thank you, Ms. Oriani.
Sure.
Does anybody have any questions for Stephanie? Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I want to thank our administrators for just rolling with the punches, so to speak, and just, making these very thoughtful modifications, in the curriculum moving forward. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Ms. Oriani. Does anybody else have a report? Mr. Murray?
I have a facilities report, yes.
Sure.
Facilities committee met last night, and we had 3 items on the agenda. One was an initial draft of the transportation review with Ingrid Ritano and Marisol Rodriguez. So more information to come from that in the coming weeks to be shared with the board, and as that gets finalized for our final report. Second item was the request to add some items to the long-range facility plan so the state can incorporate them into our overall plan. So there was 3 high school boilers at a cost of approximately $230,000 each, 1 evergreen boiler at the same cost, and then 1 rooftop unit at school 1 at approximately $70,000. So there's no financial impact. It just places the projects on record with the state. So it was more of an informational request that we move forward with adding those to the long-term facility plan. The final item is to close out one of the projects that was started 6 years ago. So, one of the things we've been doing over the course of the past, 5 to 6 years is working through a long-term plan for facility fixes, whether it's roofing or paving or masonry, things like that. So this is the final phase of paving projects. So the bulk of this project is at McGinn. The parking lot at McGinn is in dire need and is the last of the large projects to get done, along with some minor work at Coles Park and School 1. So the total cost is actually $170,000 would come from maintenance reserve. It's actually a reduction in the original cost estimate that was provided by over $30,000 or approximately $30,000. And then this should put us in a good spot for the lifeline of these projects is typically 10 to 14 years, based on the experience that we've seen and the conversations with the contractors and everything else. So it puts us in a really good place as well. So this was another project that's been in the works for 6 years that we're able hopefully able to close out as well. So those were the 3 items that we talked about and recommend approving moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Does anybody have any questions for him?
Just to clarify, there's nothing going on with the transportation review at this point. It was really initial review with the consultant that we had hired. So there'll be more information to come forward, but this was just an initial discussion and just making sure that we were sharing that we did have that initial discussion with her and Marisol, who's the Director of Transportation, last night. So more to come.
Thank you. Okay, another committee report?
I have three.
Oh, okay, Deb, go right ahead.
Okay. So I'm versus finance, and not to repeat in detail everything because a lot of it overlaps with facilities. We also looked at the transportation report review. We discussed the paving projects as well. One thing that was very good news is that Delta Dental has offered the Scotch Plains Fanwood School District a 2-year renewal package at a 0% increase, which was great news. We're going to put through a bid opening for the athletic reconditioning contract, and we want that approved by May 28th. And the bid award does not commit the district to spend any dollars unless there are uniforms to be reconditioned. So if athletic does not take place, there is no cost, but it does protect our pricing. Also, the administration is currently reviewing our technology needs, and will be asking us to approve any identified needs, in May or June. Also, as Dr. Mass had mentioned before, they're looking into a pandemic strategic plan, and there may be a need to purchase significant amount of safety and health equipment for the safety of our students and staff, and obviously to be determined following the state guidelines on a potential opening of school in September. And we also wanted to emphasize, as was stated earlier, that these projects are being funded using reserves that cannot be used for operating expenses. And our intention at the end of this school year is to review the results of the school year and then evaluate the possibility of using surplus to offset the 2021-22 school budget tax levy. And our next meeting is June 15th. And that's it for finance.
Thank you, Ms. Brody. You can proceed with whatever other reports you have.
Okay. So next is community relations. A lot of it we were troubleshooting what's going on with COVID and the schools and all. We didn't really come to any decisions, but we also mainly discussed the issues with graduation and the directives from the state police and the New Jersey Department of Education. And unfortunately, we need to follow the state guidelines regarding the celebrations and gatherings as what we can and can't do. We also discussed the potential of opening school in September, and that our first and foremost priority is the health and safety of our staff, students, and the whole community. So there's a lot to take into consideration. And one thing that it seems that there's some difficulty in the public knowing how to access our meetings. So I'll be asking the PTAs to add that information to their newsletters because they have a much larger reach than just people going onto our website. And that is it for that.
Thank you. Is any questions for Ms. Brody regarding community relation? Okay, then your third report.
My last one is, last meeting we discussed that we are having bi-monthly meetings with the leaders of the town and their financial officers. So we did have a meeting on May 8th. And included in that meeting were both mayors, Borough Administrator Fred Tompkins, Mrs. Saradaki, and Dr. Mast. And this is just something we're continuing just to keep the flow of information between the three entities open and informed as to what's happening in each of our entities. Dr. Mass explained the implications of Executive Order 107 and graduation, like I mentioned earlier, and this order outlines specifically what we can do and, more importantly, what we cannot do for gatherings and graduation and celebrations. The towns are on their own. They feel like they're on their own regarding figuring out their fiscal issues, and they cannot rely on the state. And there's so many unknowns as exactly what funding is going to be provided to them. that was provided in the past. And an example of this is they receive energy receipt taxes, and they're not sure if they're going to be receiving that. And their issues are more to do with revenues, because they're not getting other revenues such as parking. So we just discussed that. We also discussed this, what the school district is doing differently since we are not resuming classes this year. And Dr. Mass explained that there's going to be extra effort on SEL, the social emotional learning, from teachers by connecting more with the students. There'll be additional non-academic activities. And instead of suggestions from teachers to do some of these activities, some certain activities will be non-optional. And an example of a non-academic activity to reach out and connect with the kids is maybe, like, for instance, with kindergarten, to have a pet day. And if they don't have a pet, then they bring their, favorite stuffed animal to their Google Meet meeting. Also, the staff is working differently with the students than they used to. There's more outreach. And there was a discussion of planning professional development around hybrid teaching techniques.
Mhm.
And we will be meeting again on May 22nd. And those are all my reports.
Thank you, Ms. Brody. So 522, that is your subcommittee with the mayors and their business administrators.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Does anybody else have any questions for Ms. Brody on any of her committee reports? Thanks for all that work. Does anybody else have a committee report? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to letters to the board. One LET is an email to the Board of Education dated May 1st, 2020, from Adam Sackett regarding the budget. I responded, and I had copied you all on the response. I did have input with Dr. Mast and Mr. Murray before responding. And again, Mr. Sackett had called in to discuss same this evening. 2 LET was an email to the Board of Education dated May 4th, 2020, from Pam Barone regarding maintenance of the trees on the property of the high school. And Mrs. Saradaki did respond to her regarding when and how the trees were going to be maintained and or removed. 3 LET is an email to the Board of Education dated May 11th, 2020, from Annette Ferrigno and Giancarlo Castro regarding the approval of the high school field lighting at this time. And I believe Dr. Mast, correct me if I'm wrong, you did speak with her?
I spoke with her this evening, and we are going to have an ongoing conversation.
Okay.
Ms. Ferrigno has some very valid concerns, and they're certainly worth listening to and taking action.
Well, thank you for handling that phone call then. Because I would say I didn't see the email. So it came in so late.
Yeah, it was a phone call.
Oh, okay. It said email on this, so okay. Next, we come to the supervisor's contract. And I'd like to move that the Board of Education approves the ratification of supervisor's contract, including the following rate percentage increases: 2020-21, 3% increment; 21-22, 3.1 increment; 2022 to 2023, 3.15; 23-24, 3.2; 24-25, 3.25, including the increments. Can we have a second?
Second, Suriani.
Thank you, Ms. Soriani. Any question or discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Thank you.
Dr. Kulikowski, I may be wrong, but I do think this has to be a roll call vote. I'm not sure.
Oh, it
Doug?
didn't say that. That's why I was trying to look on the agenda. That's why I stalled for a minute. If you'd like to do roll call, that is just fine with me.
We can check
Yeah, I
with
think we should do roll call. We should do roll call on this.
Yeah. So, Mrs. Saradaki, will you please call the roll?
Yes, let me get the. Dr. Kulikowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Soriani,
Yes.
Mrs. Bauer,
Yes.
Mrs. Boroff,
Yes.
Mrs. Brody,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Winkler,
Yes.
Mr. Murray.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Motion carries. And then that brings us to the superintendent's report. Dr. Mast.
Thank you. I would like to just start my report by requesting that the board approve a change to the calendar at the next board meeting where we would have the Friday, May 22nd and Monday, May 25th with remote learning resuming on May 26th. And then additionally, the district has 2 unused emergency closing days, which will be used Monday, June 22nd and Tuesday, June 23rd. So I would like the board to consider that request. That at-home learning has really required a great deal of every aspect of our community. Our parents have been working as teachers. Our teachers have been working in a professional way that has been new and very impressive. We've learned a great deal from this experience, and we want to capture that. And at the same time, I think that we want to have a space to rest and regroup and capture our learning to move forward as we plan for the upcoming school year. And 1S in the superintendent's report is I'm requesting that the board move tonight to approve the education for the following, for the private and public ESY placements. The extended school year placements for 2020 is quite an extensive list. I'm not going to read those, but I am asking the board to approve that tonight.
So moved.
Second, Winkler.
Thank you. Any question or discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries.
For 2S, I would ask the board to approve the curricular matrix for the 2020-2021 school year as presented.
Is that next meeting?
That's for our next meeting. For 3S, I will ask the board to approve the school nursing plan. And 4S, I will ask the board to approve the matrix of forms for 2019-2020. That always seems like a typo, but we approve the forms looking backwards. Is that right, Mrs. Rabimbis?
Yes, that is correct.
So we have all of our forms listed there. And moving to the personnel agenda, I ask the board to approve the superintendent's recommendations for personnel on the personnel report dated May 12th, 2020.
So moved. Deb Brody.
Thank you. And a second?
Second, Winkler.
Thank you, Ms. Winkler. Any questions or comments? Okay, Mr. Saradaki, will you please call the roll?
You're muted, Mrs. Sarada.
I taught her that trick.
Good teacher. Mrs. Brody,
Yes.
Mrs. Winkler,
Yes.
Mrs. Bauer,
Yes.
Mrs. Boroff,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mrs. Suriani,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Murray,
Yes.
Dr. Kulikowski.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Mast. And that brings us to the business functions at this time. Mrs. Saradaki.
Yes, one BUS, I'm asking the board to approve Diamond Construction paving proposals under the Ed Data contract for McGinn, Coles, Park, and School 1. And if we approve all four of these, they will actually give us a $35,000 discount off the Ed Data price.
That's wonderful.
That was negotiation on part of our Director of Buildings and Grounds.
Wow.
Two BUS, I'm asking for the board to approve the renewal of Delta Dental Insurance with a 0% rate increase for 2 years. And that period is July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2022. Three BUS, I'm asking for the annual approval to acquire services and purchase supplies for 2020, 2021. And that's the authorizing the business administrator to advertise for bids, requests for proposals, and competitive contracting, utilize the state contract or a purchasing co-op, et cetera, for the list of items that are on the agenda. And that's all I'm asking for approval for this evening.
Okay, can we have a motion?
So moved. Winkler?
Thank you, Ms.
Second,
Winkler.
Brody.
Second, Ms. Brody, thank you. Any questions or discussions about these three items? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries.
Items that I'll be asking for approval at our next board meeting are the contract renewal with Strauss Esme Associates for 2020, 2021 in the amount of $4,735. 5 BUS is the designation of the official depositories for the 2020-2021 school year, and there are no changes in that from last year. It's TD Bank and the same signatories responsible for the checks. 6 BUS, we'll have the athletic equipment reconditioning bid, and hopefully we'll have responses and be able to award a bid at the next meeting. 7 BUS would be the business reports for the month ending April 30th, 2020. 8 BUS is the acknowledgement of receipt of the disbursement listings for April 2020. And 9 BUS will be the bill list for the period April 25th through May 22nd.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Saradaki.
You're welcome.
If anybody has any questions on these items before our next meeting on May 28th, please reach out to Ms. Saradaki. Okay, that brings us to board policies. And we have one POL, approval of the board policy. Mrs. Winkler, are you doing this?
Yep. By now, everyone should have received a copy of the first draft for the athletic field lighting policy / good neighbor policy that we've been working on. I know that Dr. Mast and Mr. Murray, and I'm not sure who else was involved in the conversations with some, thank you, Ms. Brody, with some of our neighbors regarding the field lighting going up. They had approached us with some concerns, and so we've been working closely with them to try and address those concerns. We've been talking with the police about things we can do to address some of those concerns. Strauss Esme did not have a policy like this for us to use, so we went out and found similar policies in other districts that have similar policies and used that as a base. I know that Dr. Mast said that Ryan Miller was involved in helping us to define some of the aspects of it. And so at this time, I'm asking that the board approve first reading. No, at our next meeting, I will be asking the board to approve for first reading the athletic field lighting policy.
Does anybody have any question or comment? Mrs. Bauer?
Yes, I just wanted to know who the current members are of the Scotch Plains Alliance and how new members are approved.
Does anybody know that? I don't.
Because they're listed in the policy.
Yeah.
And so
If you go on the website for the Scotch Plains Recreation Commission, they have a list of the members.
Wow.
And if someone wants to become a member, they approach the Recreation Commission.
so
They have
that's
members that are both Fanwood and Scotch Plains.
So it's Scotch Plains Fanwood Baseball League, Scotch Plains Fanwood Lacrosse Club, Scotch Plains Fanwood PAL, Scotch Plains Fanwood Soccer Association, JCC of Central New Jersey, SPF Public Schools, Raider Rugby, Raider Field Hockey, St. Bart's Old Timers League, Union Catholic High School, and Scotch Plains Fanwood YMCA is what it's listed on the website for the township, but we can probably reach out and get clarification, I'm guessing, from the Recreation Commission of all the names prior to the first reading, which is at the next meeting.
I would just like to know how they're approved, and is the final decision ours or this is a group? I was just a little unclear.
Thank you, Nancy. That's helpful because we wanted to be clear who's included to come to the fields. We did ask Mr. Miller about that, and we want the policy to read clearly too. The other piece I just want to add around the policy is that we did send it to one of the neighbors who has been visiting the board office on Friday, and copies of the policy were sent out to the neighbors today. I know that some of the neighbors have expressed concern that we didn't, hold to our word that we would keep meeting, and that really is true. The COVID pandemic did get us off track. We did have one meeting, and in that meeting, we did listen very carefully. And what we gave them our word on is that we would make the lights as accommodating as possible, that we would have some restrictions on the number of days and on the hours of the lights and just the general upkeep of the paths, and during big events, how the police would assist with parking and traffic and things like that. And it's true that we want to be considerate of the neighbors, but at the same time meet the needs of our students and our community. But the conversation isn't closed. I'm sure we will meet together again with the neighbors to continue to hear their concerns, to see how we work together.
So if we have questions on this policy, we should contact Amy Winkler or yourself?
Either.
Okay. Thank you.
Nancy, did you have a comment?
Well, I just wanted to ask if our attorney was reviewing the policy too for liability and other issues.
I wasn't asked to, but I certainly could.
Yes, and we did send it to draft assessment.
Since there's this alliance group that's part of it, I just think it might be useful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could certainly take a look and report back to the board and the administration.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you for your comment and question, Nancy, and thank you, Amy, for presenting this new policy. Any other policies, or is that the only one? That's it? Okay. That brings us to new board business. Is there any new board business? Seeing none, moving on to other board business. OBB 1 is liaison reports. Does anybody have a liaison report? Being no one. 2 OBB, request to attend workshop or workshop reports.
I think Miss Bauer has
I forgot to say everybody should have received the invitation. I think it was in today's mail from the Garden State Coalition of Schools for the annual meeting, which is going to be virtual this year on May 27th. And so hopefully you can attend. It's the same time. It's in the morning on May 27th. And the theme is Big Questions, Critical Answers, Moving Forward in a Changed Education Landscape. They will have a panel like they typically do of politicians, and John Mooney of New Jersey Spotlight will be the moderator. And it's already, you can already register. So
I already did. That was my thing to say.
Oh,
I already
I'm sorry.
registered, so I'm requesting to go. It's free because it's online. Unfortunately, we don't get that great breakfast that we usually get when we went down there. But yeah, at least we can all go now. So I'm already signed up.
We should all be losing weight.
Yeah. No. Okay. Nobody has any workshop reports? Okay. For one other OBB I'd like to add is I was contacted by some local Board of Ed presidents, and it was Doug Reinstein from Berkeley Heights. And he mentioned that it was probably about 2 or more years ago that they were trying to have the little committee of Board of Ed presidents, for lack of a better term, to meet and get together to share ideas and concerns. And Nancy, I'm not sure if you participated in that when they had it. Okay, because I know I hadn't heard of this before. So it's called the President's Board, and they're looking to form this little committee. That's Doug Reinstein from Berkeley Heights, Vanessa Primark from Summit, Peggy Oster from Westfield, Jill Weber from Chatham, and Bernadette Caccaro from New Providence. So I am going to respond that I'm interested, see what it's about, see what they want to discuss. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Those are just the Board of Ed presidents from those local towns. And if there's no other board business, then we'll move on to, for next time, the approval of the minutes. We're going to look at the minutes from April 23rd, open agenda meeting, executive session, and the open public meeting, April 30th, regular meeting, and the executive meeting. So look for those minutes when they are sent. And then at this time, we're going to go to our final public comment session. So if you would like to make a call, please call 908-913-0709 for public comment. In accordance with the Scotch Plains Fanwood Public Schools Bylaws 0164-0165, the meeting will be open for 15 minutes for public comment with a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers addressing the superintendent items, business functions, and other board business will be heard first. If time remains, the callers may address any other matter. And if you would like to make a public comment, please call 908-913-0709. And please note, board members cannot respond regarding concerns with individual students or staff members. Such matters should be addressed to the superintendent's office. If you're calling in, please state your name and the town in which you reside. Robin, do we have any calls at this time?
Dr. Kulikowski, there's no calls right now.
Well, let's give it another minute. I'll just review the upcoming schedule of meetings. So our next board meeting is Thursday, May 28th at 7:30. It will be online and live streamed. We're also planning on Monday, June 8th for a student recognition for the high school seniors. It will also be online and live streamed. And then Thursday, June 18th, open public meeting, again, live on streamed. And Thursday, June 25th, our final meeting for the year, our regular public meeting at 7:30 for exec and 8 o'clock for the public, online and live stream. Robin, did we get anybody else in?
Dr. Kulikowski, there's no calls at this time.
Okay. Oh, at least we had a call tonight earlier. Okay. Well, thank you, Robin. I appreciate your handling the phones.
My pleasure.
At this time, can we have any remarks for the good of the order?
I just had a question. Before on our upcoming events, we lost the retiree recognition. Are we going to be doing anything for that? Or?
I thought we were going to try to attach that to one of the meetings coming up.
Okay.
So we are revisioning that, and we do know that we'll invite the retirees back perhaps during tenure recognition if we're able to, get together at that time. But we will have a virtual recognition, and I'm reaching out to the retirees, and perhaps the board members could join me to give them a congratulatory, well-wishing call too.
Yeah, just let me know when you want to do that. That's fine with me. Thank you for your question, Nance. Any other comments for the good of the order? I'm seeing more and more rainbows every time I go out, and more places. And even someone mentioned it on television today about that, seeing rainbows around, people putting them up in their front windows, whether they're drawings or out on the sidewalk in chalk. It's the symbol of hope, of better days to come. And then somebody else on TV, it was at the end of one of the newses today, I don't remember which channel it was, and somebody was singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Again, just using the rainbow as the symbol of hope to get through this and to look for something good to come out of this. So rainbows are a symbol.
I would want to throw in one quick thing.
Sure, Ms. Borf, go right ahead.
And I agree about the rainbows. I'm a big fan of happiness and colors. But I did get a chance to catch today, and I'm staring at my computer screen so I don't screw this up, but a performance that involved some of our high school students, Michael John Trotta. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Someone would know. You Are My Refuge. And it was fabulous. It's on, I'm sure that we'll have a link to it on our Facebook page. I think I want to say that there were 9 high schools maybe, but it was high school student. Was it 5? 5. Someone else could definitely speak to this. I just want to acknowledge it because I was blown away by how beautiful it was listening to it.
It was magnificent. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also heard it when it premiered this afternoon around noon, and it was you just couldn't stop listening. And it was so nice the way they moved the screen around so that you can see all of the students. There was a small number of students, then they flipped it so that it was the other students, and then they showed all of them together. So the dots were really small, but at least they showed them the magnitude of all the students that collaborated on this. It's wonderful. It's just so beautiful. I'm so glad you brought it up because, it was so odd. It's in the middle of the day, but we're all home anyway. It was so good. It will be on YouTube. If you click the link that was there, you could play it again because I played it more than once.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll end up on our SPF Proud YouTube page at some point.
It was magnificent. It really was.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ms. Boroff.
No, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, could I have a motion for adjournment then?
So moved, Boroff.
Second, Williams.
Any question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I didn't think so. Motion to adjourn. Motion carries. See you next time. Bye-bye. Meeting adjourned.